What's wrong with inherited money?
I don't think that inheritance is a terrible concept in general.
So why do you put it down?
At the level that we see it, it contributes to inequality.
What's wrong with it, period?
It contributes to inequality.
How does that
creates
So if my parents left me $1 billion and your parents left you nothing, that makes my parents wrong?
No, that does not make your parents wrong.
Does that make you be poor?
Depends. Did your parents exploit
So how would
labor?
that, my parents giving
Did
me
your parents
money,
exploit my labor?
They did not exploit.
Can you make $1 billion just sitting at your seat? Probably not. You would have to use a crew of people that you have right here, and you'd have to take in donations. But you don't have to take the job.
I can connect with any piece of information on the planet at any time of night or day. I can go to the grocery store and I can get any delicacy I want from anywhere on planet Earth. I can live in a bigger house if I can pay for it, and I can pay for it. Right? This is one of the beautiful things about living in the United States. Things have gotten incredibly better, but people refuse to recognize this.
Yes, but you would die.
Right. You could die if you don't want to work.
That's still violent.
If you don't want to work,
don't you think that it's kind of violent?
I gotta ask you this.
Okay. Sorry.
Define poverty for me.
A state of being in relation to other wealthier individuals, where you don't have access to the same amount of amenities or same amount of things that society would offer.
The reason that capitalism is a good is not just because it's more efficient and creates better products, is because it says that the stuff you create, you get to keep. The stuff that you create, you get to keep, and no one can be the master of your time or labor. No one gets to enslave you just because they have needs. Right? This is the John Locke view of capitalism, right? John Locke's view of property ownership is that you combine your labor with the land, and that's why you have a right to land. The same thing holds true of capital. You combine your labor with capital. You combine your input with capital, your investment knowledge with capital, and now that is your money. And the idea that anyone can take that money away from you just because they want the money for their own purposes is morally obtuse.
Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is worth about $150 billion. That's enough to make him the richest man in the world by far, and possibly the richest human being in all of human history. It's certainly enough to pay his employees well, but he doesn't. A huge number of Amazon workers are so poorly paid, they qualify for federal welfare benefits. According to data from the nonprofit group New Food Economy, nearly 1 in 3 Amazon employees in Arizona, for example, was on food stamps last year.
Poor people don't have $1 billion. You look at people like Jeff Bezos, you look at Bill Gates, they employ thousands upon thousands of people. Wealth doesn't just appear out of the sky.
Let's say that you make 15 loaves of bread, okay? You're making 15 loaves of bread. Then you hire someone, and that person also has the capacity to make bread, and together you guys start making 20 loaves of bread. And you're like, well, okay, I'm going to take 15 loaves of bread for myself and give this person 5 loaves of bread as a payment, okay? So now your output is 20 loaves of bread, and the other person is getting 5 loaves of bread while you're getting 15 still. Then another undocumented person comes in.
Illegal alien?
Yeah, illegal alien, sure. And all of a sudden, that person is working as well with your company. And now...
I don't hire illegals.
Okay, hold on. Not yours specifically. I'm just saying this is a thought experiment. We're not making loaves of bread, and that's not the kind of payment anyway.
Now, simply on the topic of capitalism, I do think we are too quick to dismiss the ideas and critiques of someone like Karl Marx, who saw a lot of issues with the idea of people just working 8 hours a day and having no leisure, having no life, having no enjoyment. iPhones are great and all. It's great and all to be able to have a piece of technology covered in the tears of Chinese 6-year-olds that's going to become obsolete in 3 months. But we seem to have forgotten about the more meaningful things in life, our souls, our passion, our leisure time. Us as humans have lost many of the great things that we had. I think a lot of our spiritual side is gone. I think a lot of the pleasures in the arts that we had before. I mean, we've seen a massive decline in the arts, and of the average human to do something like dancing. People can't dance anymore. They can't paint, they can't sing, they can't do all of the things that humans should do. They don't spend time with their family, and it's because we have just succumbed fully to this entirely materialistic, capitalistic society where it's all about making that buck, whether it's $8 an hour, and getting the next meaningless thing. And it's been proven psychologically that choice does not make people more happy. So just because we have more trinkets to go around, it doesn't make people more happy. And capitalism is entirely based off the idea of people being miserable. You don't go and participate in the free market unless you need something, unless you want something to fulfill you. If you're perfectly happy at your house, gardening your plants, spending time with your family, fulfilling yourself or with your community, then you don't need the market. The market is entirely about making people miserable, making them feel inadequate, making them feel like they need that next thing, that new iPhone, that new clothes, all of this. I don't think capitalism makes people happy. I think it's made them utterly miserable and taken away from the meaningful things in life, like the arts, time with family, and the spiritual.
What about the Walton family? They founded Walmart. Collectively, they're worth about $175 billion. That's more than the entire gross domestic product of Qatar, the oil-rich Gulf state. The Waltons could certainly afford to be generous with their workers. Instead, they count on you to take up the slack. In 2013, taxpayers sent more than $6 billion to Walmart's employees for food stamps, Medicaid, and housing assistance.
Well, listen, I am what I would call a regulated capitalism advocate. I like the idea of being able to have a business, of being able to say, hey, you know what, there are people who are more interested in one level of success than another, and enabling the possibility of having that and having the financial incentives and rewards that go with it. However, where I become more of somebody who's into democratic socialism is that I believe that the most successful in our regulated capitalist system should be paying into the welfare programs and social goods that we have to a greater degree than the have-nots, so to speak. And I believe that it is perfectly reasonable to say capitalism, it's regulated, rules that you have to abide by in different industries with peace and love, go out there and build your business. But you have certain rules when it comes to, we provide healthcare. We have certain rules when it comes to how we damage or deal with the fact that our business exists on Earth, and we have to be aware of how we're impacting the environment and climate.
So you say that there's something culturally wrong, spiritually wrong, artistically wrong, that there's a malaise of the soul within the capitalist environment. I point out that the primary influence on children, more so than their parents. So kids spend more time in government schools than their parents. The government schools are not in any way, shape, or form organized along free market principles. You're forced to pay in many places. You're forced to go, and if you don't go, you're forced to pay even still. There's no quality control. People can't get fired. There's no particular return on investment. It's not part of the free market at all. So if you're going to start to blame the free market situation when the very center of culture, replace the church, replace the family, replace communities, the very center of that which shapes people in this supposed capitalist environment is a socialist/communist indoctrination center called government schools, you're going to have to come up with a slightly better reply than they have bells just like factories do.
So let's say now, because of that, there's an additional person, now you can pay the other, the original employee 3 loaves of bread, because you can pay the undocumented person 2 loaves of bread, because the undocumented person doesn't have all of the rights that a legal citizen would have. So you can justify paying them less. And then you can justify paying less to your original employee, because there are plenty of people who take their job, right? You're like, well, you know what? If you want to keep at least any loaves of bread and feed your family, you're going to have to take less money now. Okay? Now, you look at that and you say, hold on, why don't we just eliminate the undocumented person and get 5 while the boss still gets 15 loaves of bread? Because I was getting 5 last year, and that was better than 3. And you're right, that is better. 5 loaves of bread is better than 3. However, what I advocate for is taking away from the boss 15 loaves of bread, helping him have 10 loaves of bread, and then taking the rest of the 10 loaves of bread and distributing it evenly amongst the other employees. So all of a sudden you have 7, or you have 8, and your new friend, who is the undocumented citizen who came in, has 7. I think that the people at the top have a lot, and they have a lot to give back.
Do I own the company?
Yes.
And I'm in business to make what?
Loaves of bread, let's say.
I'll rest my case.
Exactly.
The owner should have more.
You're still no, but
because that's why he's the owner.
I know, but if you were alone, you would not be able to increase your productivity. You would not be able to create more loaves of bread.
But that's why I hire someone.
Exactly.
But they don't have to work for me if they don't want to.
I know, but where would they
They
go?
are the
They would
ones
go
who
to
would-
another. They would go
First
to
of all,
another factory where they would have the same.
You know, I would
conditions.
call the police and tell them that I have an illegal
And that-
alien here.
And that is
You need to
capitalism.
come
You're right.
together.
That is exactly the problem.
No, they have no business in my company or in my country. And so I would call the police.
Right? Well, let's tax cigarettes because we want to discourage cigarettes. Let's tax alcohol because we want to discourage alcohol. Let's tax guns, make them more expensive in California. Let's have the extortion tax in California and the bullet button. Let's tax big gulps while we're at it. Okay, apply that to income!
Jeff Bezos isn't paying his workers enough to eat, so you made up the difference with your tax dollars. Next time you see Jeff Bezos, make certain that he says thank you. If you think that's remarkable, meet Travis Kalanick. He's the youthful founder of Uber. His personal fortune is close to $5 billion. His drivers, by contrast, often make less than minimum wage. One recent study found that many Uber drivers lose money working for the company. That's not a sustainable business model. The only reason it continues is because of your generosity. Because you're paying the welfare benefits for Uber's impoverished drivers, child billionaires like Travis get to keep buying bigger houses and more airplanes. He's someone else who owes you a thank you note. If you can think of a less fair system than this, send us an email. We'd love to hear about it. This system is indefensible. And yet, almost nobody ever complains about it. How come? Well, conservatives like us support the free market, and for good reason. The free market works. But there's nothing free about this market. A lot of these companies operate as monopolies. They hate markets. They use government regulation to crush competition. There's nothing conservative about that, just as there's nothing conservative about most big corporations. Just the opposite. They are the backbone of the left. Pick a left-wing cause that you think is hurting the country. Check the donor list, and you'll find the name of some corporation, often many corporations. Corporate America enables the progressive lunacy you see every night on this show. They are funding the revolution now in progress. That's exactly why liberals say nothing as oligarchs amass billions by soaking our middle class, because they've been paid off. For example, you probably assume the people who founded Walmart were conservative. Most of their customers certainly are. Yet the bulk of the Walton family backed Hillary Clinton in the last election. They gave the Democratic Party more than $700,000 during the 2016 cycle. Almost every billionaire in Silicon Valley did the same. In return for that, they got immunity from criticism, and they got to keep forcing you to pay their employees. It was a good deal for them.
Just a few examples. I don't have a problem with capitalism per se. I do have a problem with unregulated crony capitalism, the way that it's exploded in the U.S. We have companies paying no tax whatsoever. All of that I have a major problem with.
Yeah, so you think it's regulated enough then?
No, I don't think currently we have enough regulation. We see that in terms of worker safety. We see that in terms of taxation law for corporations. We see that around, I mean, even TPP exposes this desire to create an extra legal, right? Like a tribunal that is higher than an individual country level, where big corporations would have hearings in that would circumvent the individual laws of countries, which very often are not even strong enough. So I don't think we're regulating capitalism enough. The fact that we have so many people, the fact that we have mass tort lawyers that get settlement claims for thousands upon thousands of plaintiffs who have been irreparably damaged by big corporations, all of this tells us so much about the reality that we're living in.
There is one person in Washington who is offended by this arrangement, and we're sorry to say he's wrong on pretty much everything else. But this is a weird moment in American politics, so you take allies where you can find them. Bernie Sanders, of all people, is trying to get your money back from Jeff Bezos. This is especially amazing since Bezos is on Bernie's side on most things. They're both left-wing activists. But on this question, Bernie is right. He's planning legislation that would force big corporations to return the taxpayer-funded welfare benefits you have paid to their workers. It's not a perfect solution, and it's unlikely to pass. No matter what they may say in public, liberals in Congress would never support something like that. Their loyalty is not to you, it's to Uber and Jeff Bezos and the rest. But at the very least, legislation like this might awaken a sleepy population to the new reality of activist corporate America. And that's a good thing. America has changed enormously in the last 20 years. A lot of people you thought were your allies are in fact working against your interests. They have contempt for you and your family, your customs, and your faith. Included in this group, I'm sorry to say, are a lot of big corporations. They have no use for you or the country you grew up in. Stand in their way and they'll crush you. You're watching it all around us all the time.